Before we begin, welcome to Forgotten History. Take a slow breath, settle in. What follows is a story told in quiet moments, images, voices, and time folding back on itself. Thank you for lending us your attention tonight. If this kind of storytelling speaks to you, consider subscribing. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know who shares this room with us. When Cleopatra died in 30 BCE, the story was later told as a romance ending in poison and ruin. But Egypt did not fall because of love alone. It fell at the meeting point of dynastic weakness, Roman civil war, military defeat, and one of the most effective propaganda campaigns in ancient history. By the time Cleopatra came to power, Egypt was ancient beyond Roman imagination. The pyramids were already more than 2,000 years old. Yet Cleopatra did not inherit the Egypt of the pharaohs in its pure original form. She ruled a Hellenistic kingdom created after the death of Alexander the Great, when his general Ptolemy took Egypt and founded a Macedonian Greek dynasty in 305 BCE. For nearly 3 centuries, the Ptolemies governed from Alexandria, a city of palaces, harbours, temples, and libraries facing the Mediterranean. Their court spoke Greek. Their coins carried Greek royal imagery, but their power depended on Egypt's older landscape: the Nile, the grain harvest, temple networks, and a population that made the kingdom one of the wealthiest states in the ancient world. This wealth was the key to everything that followed. Egypt fed cities. It taxed trade. It linked the Mediterranean to the Eastern world. To ambitious Romans, it was not a distant curiosity. It was a prize. So when Cleopatra became queen, she inherited not only a throne, but a kingdom already standing in the shadow of a rising empire that had begun deciding the fate of other states around the sea. In 51 BCE, Cleopatra VII became co-ruler after the death of her father, Ptolemy the Auletes. She was still young, and by dynastic custom, she ruled alongside her brother, Ptolemy the. The arrangement was unstable from the beginning. Ptolemaic politics were often a family struggle in royal clothing, with siblings, advisors, generals, and courtiers competing for control. Cleopatra seems to have moved early to rule in her own name. That made her dangerous to those around the boy king. Soon she was pushed aside and the conflict became open. This was not unusual in the Ptolemaic house, but Egypt could no longer afford a private royal war. Rome had become too powerful, and every internal dispute offered Roman leaders a reason to intervene. Cleopatra's strengths mattered here. Ancient sources, though often hostile, still suggest intelligence, political flexibility, and a talent for personal diplomacy. She was not simply a symbol of luxury, as later Roman writing preferred to imagine her. She was a ruler trying to hold together a kingdom under pressure from within and from abroad. Her first great test would come with the arrival of one of the most powerful men in Roman history. In 48 BCE, Julius Caesar reached Alexandria while pursuing his rival Pompey during Rome's civil war. Pompey was killed on Egyptian soil before Caesar arrived, but that did not end the crisis. Instead, Caesar found himself drawn into the dynastic conflict between Cleopatra and her brother. What followed was the Alexandrian War. Cleopatra famously regained access to Caesar and secured his support, though the details of their first meeting are wrapped in later storytelling. The larger fact is clear. Caesar intervened, fought in Alexandria, and restored Cleopatra to power. Her brother Ptolemy the died during the conflict, and Cleopatra continued to rule, now with another younger brother, Ptolemy the as co-ruler in name. This moment saved her throne, but it also changed Egypt's future. Cleopatra remained queen, yet her survival was now tied to Roman politics more than ever before. Caesar's presence gave her immediate protection, but it also signaled a dangerous truth. Egypt's independence depended less and less on its own strength, and more on the favor of whichever Roman emerged victorious. The kingdom still stood, but it stood inside another republic's storm. When Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, Cleopatra lost a protector and entered a far more uncertain world. She had a son, Caesarion, who was presented as Caesar's child. In symbolic terms, that mattered enormously. In practical terms, it made Egypt's position even more delicate. Rome was collapsing into another struggle for supremacy. Cleopatra could not escape that struggle, only choose how to navigate it. Egypt was too rich, too strategic, and too close to Rome's grain needs to be ignored. Whoever controlled Rome wanted influence over the Nile. Whoever opposed Rome's leading men risked invasion. For a while, Cleopatra preserved space to maneuver. She remained on her throne. She maintained wealth, ships, and diplomatic leverage. But the room for true independence was shrinking. The old Hellenistic kingdoms that had once balanced one another were mostly gone. Rome no longer dealt with Eastern monarchs as equals for long. It absorbed them, intimidated them, or used them. That is why Cleopatra's next alliance was so decisive. Her meeting with Mark Antony was not a side story to the fall of Egypt. It was the center of it. Through Antony, Egypt gained a champion. Through Antony, it also became bound to the losing side of Rome's last great republican wars. In 41 BCE, Cleopatra met Mark Antony at Tarsus. Their partnership would become famous as one of history's great romances, but it was first a political alliance. Antony needed money, ships, and Eastern stability. Cleopatra needed protection, recognition, and a Roman partner strong enough to secure Egypt's future. The match made sense. Antony was one of Rome's most powerful commanders. Cleopatra ruled a wealthy kingdom with resources he urgently needed. Together, they built a relationship that was personal, dynastic, and strategic all at once. Children followed. So did military cooperation and territorial planning. From Cleopatra's perspective, this may have seemed like the most realistic path left. If Rome could no longer be kept at a distance, then Egypt might survive by attaching itself to one Roman titan before another did the same. But this strategy carried an obvious danger. Egypt's fate would rise or fall with Antony's fortunes. And Antony had a rival. Octavian, the adopted heir of Julius Caesar, was patient, calculating, and exceptionally skilled at turning political conflict into moral theater. Cleopatra and Antony were building a power block in the East. Octavian would make sure Rome saw it not as diplomacy, but as betrayal. One reason Cleopatra's story is so hard to recover is that much of it reaches us through her enemies. Octavian understood that if he was to defeat Antony, he also had to define Antony. And the most effective way to do that was through Cleopatra. Roman propaganda portrayed Antony as a man corrupted by the East, weakened by luxury, and dominated by a foreign queen. Cleopatra became less a ruler in these accounts than a threat, seductive, extravagant, and dangerous to Roman order. This was politically brilliant. It transformed a Roman civil war into something that could be framed as a defense of Rome against an alien monarchy. The donations of Alexandria in 34 BCE gave Octavian perfect material. Antony publicly distributed eastern territories to Cleopatra and their children, elevating them in a grand ceremony. To supporters, this may have been a dynastic settlement for the eastern Mediterranean. To Octavian, it was proof that Antony had abandoned Roman values and intended to build a rival empire with Cleopatra at its center. This image lasted for centuries. It still shapes popular memory now. But beneath the theatre was a simpler reality. Cleopatra was defending her kingdom with the tools available to a Hellenistic monarch. Octavian was preparing to destroy it with the tools available to a future emperor. The final military turning point came in 31 BCE at the Battle of Actium, off the western coast of Greece. Antony and Cleopatra faced the fleet of Octavian, commanded by his gifted admiral Agrippa. This was not merely a sea battle between rivals. It was the contest that would decide whether Egypt remained attached to a powerful ally or stood exposed before Rome alone. Actium has often been retold as a dramatic collapse caused by panic or betrayal, especially because Cleopatra's ships withdrew and Antony followed. But the battle belongs inside a larger strategic picture. Antony's forces were strained. Agrippa had cut supply lines and seized key positions. Disease, desertion, and pressure had already weakened the camp. When the battle ended in Octavian's favor, the consequences were enormous. Antony's authority fractured. Allies began to calculate again. Egypt was no longer backed by a Roman equal. It was now the refuge of a defeated coalition. After Actium, the question was no longer whether Cleopatra would face Octavian. The question was on what terms. Could she negotiate? Could Antony recover? Could Egypt still be preserved in reduced form? The answers would play out in Alexandria, where the last chapter of Ptolemaic rule was about to begin. In 30 BCE, Octavian invaded Egypt and advanced on Alexandria. Antony's position collapsed quickly. Ancient accounts describe confusion, failed resistance, and final despair. Believing Cleopatra dead, Antony is said to have fallen on his sword. Mortally wounded, he was reportedly brought to Cleopatra and died in her presence. Cleopatra then faced the central decision of her life. Ancient authors suggest she negotiated with Octavian, but the details are uncertain. She may have hoped to preserve some future for her children, or perhaps to save a reduced kingdom under Roman oversight. It is also possible that by then, she understood there was no real bargain available. Octavian needed Egypt. He also needed to display victory. What happened next is famous, but not fully certain. Cleopatra died shortly afterward, ending the Ptolemaic dynasty. The traditional story says she used an asp. Other possibilities have been suggested in antiquity and by modern historians. The surviving evidence does not allow full confidence about the method. What is clear is the meaning of her death. It was the final political act of Egypt's last independent ruler. Whether chosen as escape, defiance, or both, it denied Octavian a living queen to parade through Rome. With Cleopatra dead, the remaining question was succession. Her son Caesarion represented more than a child king. He represented a claim, however dangerous or symbolic, to Julius Caesar's bloodline. For Octavian, that was unacceptable. Caesarion was killed, or allowed to be killed, soon after the conquest. That act made the future unmistakable. There would be no restored Ptolemaic branch, no client kingdom carrying Cleopatra's line. Egypt was annexed directly in 30 BCE and reorganized as a Roman province under Octavian's personal control. This was a special arrangement, and it reflected Egypt's enormous value. Its grain, tax revenue, and strategic location made it too important to hand to the normal ambitions of Roman senators. Here, at last, we can answer the question of what really happened to Cleopatra's Egypt. It was not simply seduced into ruin. It was absorbed by the strongest winner of Rome's civil wars. Military defeat made annexation possible. Propaganda made it acceptable. Dynastic fragility made resistance harder, and Egypt's own wealth made conquest irresistible. The kingdom founded after Alexander was over. A Roman Egypt had begun, and with it the age that would soon make Octavian into Augustus, master of an empire. After the conquest, Octavian became Augustus in 27 BCE, and Egypt remained one of the most important provinces in the Roman world. But military victory was only part of his success. He also won the memory of the war. For later generations, Cleopatra became a symbol of beauty, temptation, and excess. That image survived because Roman writers preserved it, artists repeated it, and later cultures found it irresistible. Yet when we step back from the legend, a different figure appears. Cleopatra was the last ruler of a dynasty that had long relied on fragile family politics. She governed a kingdom coveted by Rome. She maneuvered in a world where independent states were disappearing one by one. This does not mean every decision she made was wise. Tying Egypt to Antony was a gamble, and it failed. But the deeper question remains one historians still ask. Was Egypt already too entangled in Roman power to survive independently, no matter what she chose after Caesar's death? That question may never be answered completely. What remains is a clearer ending. Cleopatra's Egypt did not vanish in a single romantic gesture. It ended because a wealthy Hellenistic kingdom trapped inside Rome's final civil wars met a rival who intended not just to defeat it, but to rewrite its story forever.